Well, hello and welcome back. Welcome to the Daily Sales Message. This is episode number 42. Episode number 42. That means for at least the last 42 days in a row, we've provided you with a piece of simple, actionable advice that's going to help you to improve your sales performance and feel more confident too. If you're new here, my name is James Newell. I teach people how to sell for a living. For me, it comes in two parts. First of all, you have to have a clear sales message so that people understand what you're selling. And secondly, you need selling confidence. You need to be relaxed, comfortable, and confident in a selling situation. In this episode of the Daily Sales Message, we are talking about this. Can you feel this? Can you feel it? And what I mean by that is something called emotional contagion. Emotional contagion. The prime example, don't worry, it's not going to get technical, I promise. The prime example here, have you ever walked into a room full of happy people and felt happier? You spoke to somebody, they're really upbeat and it kind of rubs off on you. And the reverse, have you ever been into a room full of people who are a bit downbeat and it's rubbed off on you? You've spoken to somebody who's in the doldrums and it rubbed off on you. That's emotional contagion. We can sense how the people feel around us, and then we kind of adopt that feeling for ourselves. And the importance of this here, when it comes to sales and selling, is this notion of, and you've probably had this yourself when you've tried to buy something, and you spoke to somebody, and it sounded okay, just didn't feel right. There was something missing. And that is emotional contagion. Because for all of the language and talking about the right things in the world, if we're not backing that up with our energy and with our belief and really speaking about the things that matter to us, people can sense that. It falls flat. Another prime example, love him or hate him, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a ginormous man. He's like 6'4", 6'3" or something. He talks in huge, exaggerated terms about all these kind of things. Some of it's truth, some of it's very much not truth, but there we go. But for all of his bluster and all of his talk, most people realize that actually he's probably quite fragile on the inside. So for all of his bluster and all the stuff he's saying, the outward projection of who he is, we feel that actually it feels like a little bit of a lost boy and he's trying to seek approval from people. And that's what we're talking about here with emotional contagion. The relevance in sales is if you don't sound like you know what you're talking about, which sounds like a really flippant off-the-cuff thing to say, but it's super important for the clients and students that I work with. If you don't sound like you know what you're talking about, people will sniff you out a mile off. And the sad part is, the tragedy is, you could be the best in the world at what you do. But if you can't communicate that to people, they won't believe you. So it's one thing to be really good at what you do. It's another thing to be really good at communicating what you do. So to overcome this issue of emotional contagion and sounding like you know what you're talking about, one of the simplest ways that you can do this is to have a process of working. Articulate how you do what you do. It's a 3-step thing, this is what we look at, there we go. And it's called the James process or whatever. But having an articulated process of working helps you to feel more confident, more certain, and to exude that genuinely when you're talking to people. So that's one way you can do it. And the other way that you can do it is by really honing in and defining the problems that you solve. So there's 3 problems I solve at Clear Sales Message. I help you to simplify complex offering, differentiate in the marketplace, and justify the price of a high-ticket, quote-unquote, intangible offering. If I'm talking to you and I suggest those 3 things, and then I say, actually, from talking to you, it's a differentiation one, isn't it? Number 2, brilliant. Let me tell you what we'll do there. It's called the differentiation method, blah, 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 blah. If I talk in those certain terms, you get the sense I know what I'm talking about, and you won't be leaving here thinking, it sounded okay, or it just didn't feel right. So for the want of articulating my process and being very specific about the problems that I solve, I can overcome this issue of people not feeling like I know what I'm doing. So give that some thought today. Think about articulating your process of working, listing out the problems that you solve, and being specific and as prescriptive and as prepared as possible for these conversations, because that is where genuine confidence and overcoming this emotional contagion issue will come in. Well, that's it for this episode of the Daily Sales Message. Tomorrow, look, did you see that? It just moved. We're going to be talking about motion bias and its importance, but we will cover that in a little more detail tomorrow. Thank you for listening. If you aren't already subscribed, please hit the button. And if you haven't already, please think about sharing this with somebody that you think might take value from listening to the Daily Sales Message. We're trying to reach as many people as possible with all of this free, actionable advice. It's designed for business owners, solopreneurs, small businesses, people that just need some strategies, some tips, some practical direction to overcome everyday challenges. So if you haven't already, please consider sharing this with somebody that you know who you think is going to benefit from it. And thank you in advance for that. That's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Daily Sales Message.